The anxiety of keeping someone around, especially a woman you're interested in, is often what drives you away from her. Stoicism teaches us that the more we fear losing something we don't control, the more slaves we become to that desire. And in the field of attraction, this constant fear of being forgotten usually produces the opposite effect. It suffocates, wears out, and reduces its value. A man who is always seeking validation is constantly operating from scarcity. He believes that if he does not speak up, he will be erased from her memory. But ironically, it is this needy behavior that makes him less interesting. The Stoics would say, you become what you fear. If you fear being forgotten, you act like someone who doesn't deserve to be remembered. Stoic wisdom is in focusing on what you can control, and someone's desire, memory, attention are not under your control. You can't force someone to like you, but you can cultivate behavior that naturally arouses admiration. Serenity is more attractive than affliction. When you act from reason and not emotion, you begin to reverse the game. His calm becomes a mystery. His absence becomes a presence. Their indifference turns into value. The woman starts to see you as a man who has a rich enough life not to depend on her answer. That's attractive. The fear of losing part of the assumption that you already have. But no one owns anyone. The Stoics believed that everything we have is borrowed by life, including people. When you understand this, your attachment dissolves and anxiety disappears. Stop living in the illusion that insisting, forcing contact, or always being available will make you unforgettable. Most of the time, this just confirms what she's already realized, that you're more concerned with being chosen than being selective. And a Stoic man doesn't beg for attention. He commands respect. It is natural to want to be close to those who interest us. But Stoicism reveals a counterintuitive truth. The value of something is recognized only in its absence. The human mind needs space to miss it. When you are always present, always accessible, you take away from a woman the chance to truly desire you. The Stoics practiced voluntary distancing to strengthen self-control. They knew that excess is close to wear. By applying this to modern relationships, we realize that strategic absence is not disinterest, but emotional intelligence. The woman begins to reflect. Why did he disappear? Is he with someone else? Has he forgotten me? These questions are the fertile soil of desire. You may be physically absent, but emotionally present. This is what the Stoics would call mastery over impressions. She thinks about you because you're not there all the time. And thinking is the first step to wishing. Wishing is the first step to acting. When she misses it, she is the one who starts investing. Absence is also a test. If you distance yourself and she disappears completely, it was a superficial interest. But if she stays there, looks for you, mentions you, nudges you in some way, it means that the bond has begun to form. True connection survives silence. The Stoics said, "The truth does not scream, it remains." The key is to know how to dose. It's not about ignoring for the sake of ignoring, but about having a life that doesn't revolve around a single person. When you're focused on your projects, your training, your studies, your purposes, you don't have to be absent on purpose. Your life naturally places priorities, and that's irresistible. Stop trying to be reminded insistently. Start being remembered with absence and authenticity. The Stoic does not need to prove his worth to anyone. He just lives so wholeheartedly and confidently that his absence speaks louder than the presence of many. Have you ever wondered why that person who takes a long time to respond or who is less available stays longer in your head? The answer lies in Stoic psychology. Everything that is uncertain generates tension, and emotional tension is one of the greatest sources of human desire. It is mystery that activates curiosity, and curiosity that activates interest. When a woman is slow to respond, many men interpret it as disinterest. But the most common reaction is obsession, checking messages, reviewing conversations, creating assumptions. This shows that uncertainty messes with our minds in a profound way. And if that works for you, why wouldn't it work for her? The mistake is in believing that to keep someone interested, you need to be present all the time. This is completely refuting human behavior. Stoicism teaches us to understand the patterns of the mind without being held hostage to them. When you master this dynamic, you start to use it to your advantage, with wisdom and limits. Uncertainty works because it forces the other to fill mental gaps. Did he like me? Why didn't he speak today? Is he with anyone? These questions generate emotional engagement. She starts imagining you, and when she imagines it, you already live in her mind. The Stoics talked about the importance of not reacting impulsively, but observing and acting with intention. By adopting this posture, you do not respond on impulse. You do not despair to keep in touch. You act when you are consistent with your principles, not out of fear of losing someone. Instead of rushing to fill the silence, use the silence to make yourself unforgettable. The man who masters himself becomes an enigma, and every enigma needs to be deciphered. Attraction is born of doubt, and doubt is born of the absence of immediate answers. Many men get lost trying to please women with gifts, constant messages, or emotional promises. But what really attracts a woman under the lens of Stoicism is not the quantity of affection, but the quality of male presence. It is the man who has control over himself who ignites true interest. Female emotions are driven by narrative, and every good narrative has suspense, doubts, and twists. A predictable man who gives himself all right away becomes boring. The Stoic understands this dynamic and knows that mystery is stronger than total exposure. He shows himself little by little because he trusts in his value. Seneca said, "Nothing is so admirable in a man as his ability to govern himself." A woman does not fall in love with those who do everything for her, but with those who show that they have a world of their own and that they need to earn the right to be part of it. This creates value. This creates positive tension. You don't have to become distant, cold, or aloof, but you need to stop acting like her attention is oxygen. The Stoic lives well with or without. It is whole, not a half waiting to be completed. This posture conveys strength, independence, and respect. A woman wants to be emotionally challenged. And the biggest challenge is dealing with a man who doesn't let himself be manipulated by emotions, who listens, who understands, but who does not bow down. A man who remains centered even when his heart races. This, for her, is a rarity, and the rare we want. So if you want to attract a real woman, stop trying to be what she wants. Be who you are, with firmness, calmness, and values. This authenticity, combined with self-control, is the greatest emotional aphrodisiac that exists. In their eagerness to conquer, many men exaggerate. They send dozens of messages, praise non-stop, are available at any time of the day. But Stoicism teaches us that less is more. Just as virtue is in the right measure, desire is also born of balance, not excess. Epictetus said that we should take care of our soul as we take care of a garden, with attention but without obsession. The same goes for a relationship. When you overwater a plant, it dies. When you give too much attention to a woman without reciprocity, you dry up her interest. Seduction, in the light of Stoicism, is not a series of techniques, but a natural expression of one's personal worth. It is when you live with purpose, speak clearly, look firmly, and leave with tranquility. It is to be whole, without having to exaggerate. A woman notices when you act out of fear or trust. Excess denounces fear, moderation reveals safety, and security is what attracts the most. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. It just needs to be someone worth discovering over time. Avoid forced messages, desperate gestures, or attempts to impress at all costs. The real charm is in the naturalness, at the calm pace of someone who knows it's interesting, and that's why you don't need to force it. The Stoic is magnetic because he is calm. And calm has become a luxury in the modern world. Remember, being interesting is not talking all the time. It is knowing when to speak, when to shut up, and when to disappear. The Stoic man understands that well-placed silence is worth 1,000 words thrown into the wind. Many men confuse ignoring with disrespecting, but in Stoicism, silence is a tool of wisdom. Ignoring a woman strategically is not about mistreating her. It's about not being held hostage to anxiety that wants immediate answers. It is learning to make room for interest to flourish naturally. The Stoic does not act on impulse. He understands that each action has an emotional weight and that often silence communicates more than speech. When you are away for a while, you are not saying, "I don't care," but "I value myself enough not to beg for attention." This completely changes the dynamics of the relationship. Respect starts with you respecting yourself. If a conversation isn't flowing, if it doesn't demonstrate reciprocity, silence becomes an elegant response. This shows that you don't force anything. And when she realizes this, she begins to see you with different eyes of admiration. Ignoring is also a way to test genuine interest. A woman who is really connected to you will miss you and seek to reconnect herself. Those that disappear forever only prove that they were never really present. The Stoic does not regret what is not essential. If all you do is seek, ask, insist, and declare yourself, you become a noise, and noises are ignored. But when you silence at the right time, you become absence, and absences are felt. The woman begins to reflect, why did he disappear? And at that moment you gain power. Power is not in dominating the other, but in dominating oneself. The Stoic man does not ignore it out of pride, but out of balance. He speaks when he should speak, but is silent when he realizes that he is investing more than he receives. And this emotional intelligence is irresistible. In a world where everyone wants attention, knowing how to dose it is a form of power. Attention is like a valuable coin, and many men give it away as if it were worthless. They send messages all the time. They like everything. They respond too quickly. But what is given for free is rarely valued. Stoicism teaches us to be selective with our time and energy. When you dedicate attention without criteria, you demonstrate that you don't have defined priorities. And this gives the image that your life is empty, that you live for a woman. This type of behavior, far from attracting, drives away. The woman notices when she becomes the center of her world. And although it seems like a beautiful gesture, it is also a sign of emotional dependence. The Stoic man offers attention as a gift, not as a cry for help. He does not seek to fill a void. He shares a wholeness. Give attention with purpose. When you're together, be 100% present. But other than that, don't become an emotional servant who responds to any notification in seconds. This is not education. It is a lack of control. Learn to take breaks, to have moments of your own, to reconnect with silence. The value of your attention increases when it is scarce and well managed. Just as gold is precious because it is rare, its presence and its gaze should be something it earns, not something it takes for granted. The Stoic does not offer himself, he allows himself to be discovered. Instead of trying to prove your worth with excessive attention, prove it with your serenity, with your well-conducted routine, with your life that goes on, with or without an answer. It shows that you have a solid existence, and that's what really attracts. There is a very common impulse among men, to please at all costs, to please so as not to lose, to please in order to be accepted. But Stoicism warns us that when you constantly seek to please, you are giving away your power, and a man without internal power is rarely respected. The Stoics trained self-control as an essential virtue. They understood that giving in to all emotional impulses is like handing over the rudder of your life to chance. When you feel like you need to please someone all the time, it's a sign that you're living outwards, not inwards. The woman realizes when her actions are done out of fear. When you praise too much, when you're always available, when you say yes even though you mean no, these are all signs of emotional submission. And what begins with tenderness ends in boredom. There is no challenge, there is no firmness, there is no magnetism. Mastering the impulse to please is knowing how to say no calmly, keeping your rhythm without fear of being misunderstood. The Stoic is not rude, but he is firm. He knows he doesn't have to give in all the time to be loved. He understands that respect comes before admiration. This control is not to manipulate, but to protect one's own dignity. When you learn to deal with your own emotions, you become a pillar. And a pillar doesn't have to move to please passers-by. It stands firm. The woman feels this stability, and that's what attracts her. True power lies in the ability to contain. When you don't act to please, but to maintain your integrity, you become a rare man. And rare men are remembered. Even in silence, even in distance, the human brain is addicted to expectations. We create narratives, anticipate answers, imagine endings. In the case of women, expectation and mystery work as powerful triggers, and the man who understands this has mastered a subtle art of seduction. Stoicism helps you create this mystery in a natural way, without playing games. The mistake of many men is to give themselves too much at the beginning. They say everything, reveal everything, answer everything. But the mystery isn't being cold or unapproachable. It's leaving room for her to imagine. It is giving signs, not complete statements. The Stoic understands that what is not said also communicates. When you don't reveal all your steps, when you're not always there explaining what you feel, you generate curiosity. The woman starts to observe you more, to think more, trying to understand you. And this process creates emotional involvement. Imagination is the cradle of desire. The Stoic man lives with purpose, and this naturally creates layers. He doesn't have to force mystery. He's complex because he lives in a real way. He has goals, he has routine, he has silence. And silence is where the mystery lies, and mystery is where desire is born. When everything is predictable, nothing is exciting. Human beings need butterflies in their stomachs. Do you need the, did he like it, or is he still interested? It is not about manipulating, but about understanding the female mind, and give her the space to desire you. If you want to be unforgettable, don't be transparent like glass. Be deep as an ocean. Show the surface, but hide the depths. The man who creates expectation, even without speaking, lives in her thoughts. And that's where the real attraction begins. In a noisy world, silence has become a form of power. For the Stoic, silence is not the absence of words, but the presence of wisdom. And when it comes to relationships, knowing how to be silent is more valuable than knowing how to talk, especially when silence is well positioned. Many men fall into the trap of filling every space with messages, audios, explanations, but sometimes all you need to do is say nothing. Let the pause work for you. Silence well used leaves room for reflection, generates impact, and causes more emotion than hasty words. The Stoic would use silence to maintain dignity. If it is cold, distant, incoherent, he withdraws, not out of pride, but out of self-care. He knows that not every absence needs a response. Sometimes the best move is to do none. This silence is not revenge, it is balance. It is to understand that not everything deserves an immediate reaction. The woman feels this silence. She understands that you are not just any man who runs to justify or beg. And he begins to see in you something rare, a man with a center. When she realizes that you don't affect yourself easily, she begins to wonder why. And that creates magnetism. Women respect more those who do not hurry, and those who know how to wait are more admiring. The Stoic waits with presence. It is there, but it does not move by any wind. Use silence as a tool of respect for yourself and for others. Speak with actions, with posture, with coherence. And when it is necessary to speak, your words will have a weight that few can achieve, because those who know how to be silent when they speak score. We live in an era where everything is instantaneous: messages, confirmations, responses. But human desire continues to operate by old mechanisms. Stoicism understands that the mind is attracted to what it does not yet fully understand. It is in doubt that the desire to discover is born, and it is in uncertainty that deep interest is built. When a man is completely available from the start, he eliminates any mystery. This may even generate comfort, but it hardly generates passion. The woman needs to feel a slight emotional imbalance for her brain to release dopamine. The emotion is in the will it, not the for sure. The Stoics valued internal control and despised the need for external predictability. They knew that what is uncertain arouses our attention, while what is guaranteed numbs interest. This is one of the reasons why relationships that start with a lot of yes and little emotional tension soon lose their grace. For a Stoic man, creating doubt is not a game of manipulation, but the natural reflection of a life well lived. He has his own interests, purposes, priorities. He doesn't answer everything right away, not because he's trying to play hard to get, but because he's really committed to other things. And this naturalness, paradoxically, attracts. True love is built, but desire needs to be ignited, and it only lights up when there are unknown elements. When the woman realizes that she doesn't have full control over you, she starts paying attention to the details. Each absence becomes an enigma. Each answer becomes a relief. That's how interest grows. Therefore, if you want to keep the desire alive, avoid being predictable. Leave room for her to discover you little by little. Like a good book that doesn't deliver the end on the first page. The Stoic does not give himself all at once. He allows himself to be known over time, and that time is where true love flourishes. Women don't just fall in love with their eyes, they fall in love with their minds. The intellectual attraction, the mental challenge, the subtle play of interpretations, all of this creates a connection that goes far beyond the physical. And Stoicism offers the ideal way to create this type of attraction. Calm combined with depth. The man who provokes the female imagination is the one who does not give everything, who speaks with pauses, who responds lightly and provokes reflection. He is not needy or anxious. It is stable, centered, and because of this it confuses, challenges, and enchants. Women want to understand more. They want to decipher. And the more she tries, the more involved she becomes. Epictetus said, "Circumstances do not make man, they only reveal who he is." The same goes for seduction. It's not about creating a mysterious character, but about being so authentic and upright that your calm becomes an enigma, its coherence becomes a challenge, and his absence becomes history. When you don't answer everything, when you disappear for a few hours, when you say maybe instead of yes, you're generating emotional movement within her mind. And the female mind loves to build stories. The Stoic man understands this and positions himself soberly, without exaggeration. It's not about playing with her feelings, it's about being firm in your essence. When you don't give in to emotional pressures, when you maintain your serenity in the face of uncertainty, you transmit invisible strength. And this force attracts more than any outward beauty. Do you want to be remembered? Be the man she never managed to fully decipher. The man who spoke less, but had the most impact, that he did not rush but remained. The Stoic is this man, silent on the outside, but unforgettable on the inside. Seneca said that, "Hope is the worst of evils because it prolongs the torment of men." And while that sounds negative, he was talking about misdirected hope. However, in the field of attraction, the binomial between uncertainty and hope is what activates desire. It's like an emotional addiction that traps the mind in the almost. When you sometimes pay attention, sometimes you distance yourself. You activate the same mechanism that casinos use to trap players. It is the famous intermittent reinforcement. It's not about total absence, but about variation. And this variation generates a state of emotional alertness. The woman begins to wait for you without even realizing it. The Stoic man understands this, but he doesn't use it as manipulation. He just lives with balance and therefore is not always available. Your time is dedicated to what has purpose. He does not live glued to his cell phone, nor does he act for fear of being forgotten. He trusts that what is real remains, even in absence. This oscillation between presence and distance activates dopamine in the female brain. The expectation of a message, the butterflies in the stomach before a response. All of this generates emotional addiction. And addiction is not born of certainty, but of the hope of something good about to happen. However, be careful. If you exaggerate the absence, she gives up. If you exaggerate the presence, it settles down. The secret is in the dance. The Stoic knows how to dance with life. He appears when it's time to appear, disappear when it's time to prioritize yourself. And this rhythm creates enchantment. So don't be afraid to be fickle, fear being obvious. The woman who is enchanted is the one who feels that she is still in the process of conquering you. The Stoic man allows this process because he knows that what is true is built with time, not urgency. The central virtue of Stoicism is self-control. A man who governs his impulses, who controls his emotions, and who does not live according to the reaction of others, naturally stands out. And in the field of attraction, this type of man is a rarity, and therefore he becomes extremely desired. Many men sabotage themselves by acting in a hurry. They run to respond, to please, to prove something, but the more impulsive you are, the more predictable you become. And predictability kills desire. The man who thinks before acting, who speaks clearly and acts calmly, creates mystery and respect. The woman observes details, how you react to her silence, how you deal with rejection, how you position yourself in the small tensions. And when she realizes that you don't lose control because of a cold response, she starts to see you as someone strong, and strength is an aphrodisiac. Self-control is not coldness, it is maturity. It's knowing that the world doesn't revolve around a single woman, that your life mission doesn't stop because someone visualized it and didn't respond. The Stoic man follows, and by following, he demonstrates value. This type of emotional control conveys security. And security is what every woman seeks, even if unconsciously. It is not security to protect you, but to know that you do not disassemble by any provocation. You are firm, and firmness attracts. If you want to be truly desired, stop being a reactive man. Be a man with direction. The Stoic lives with purpose, and purpose, when well lived, naturally attracts those who have eyes to see true value. The worst prison is the one you don't even realize you're in. Many men live hostage to their own emotions, neediness, fear of rejection, need for approval. And it is exactly this type of behavior that makes them invisible to women. The man who does not dominate himself ends up being dominated by the desire to be accepted. Stoicism is a call to emotional freedom. He teaches that feelings exist, but they should not govern us. You may feel like sending a message, going after it, explaining yourself. But that doesn't mean you should. Wisdom is in pausing, breathing, and acting with intention. A man who acts on impulse is like a boat without a rudder. He goes wherever the wind of emotion takes him. And this type of man does not pass security. The woman notices the instability. And emotional instability at the beginning of a relationship is a great warning sign. True power is not in conquering someone, but in conquering oneself. When you master your impulses, your reactions, your anxiety, you become magnetic because it conveys something rare, balance. And balance is what attracts and maintains interest constantly. The woman falls in love with the man she admires, and admiration is born when she sees you being you, without getting lost in attempts to please or be accepted. The Stoic man does not seek applause. He lives with integrity, and this posture, in the long run, is worth more than any momentary achievement. Therefore, if you want to be remembered, respected, and desired, start with yourself. Cure the lack. Strengthen self-control. Develop silence. The man who lives with emotional intelligence does not need to chase after it, because he is already ahead, even when he is silent.